What drives a father to murder? How can love turn to hatred so vile it ends in bloodshed? Welcome back to Eye for an Eye. Today we dive into the chilling case that shocked Texas and exposed the deadly consequences of intolerance. Buckle up, because the story of Britney Cosby and Crystal Jackson is one you won't soon forget. On a crisp spring morning in 2014, the sleepy community of Port Bolivar, Texas, woke to a nightmare. Behind a convenience store, discarded like trash, lay the bodies of two young women. Their names were Britney Cosby and Crystal Jackson, both 24 years old. Little did anyone know, this discovery would unravel a tale of family, prejudice, and unthinkable violence. Britney and Crystal were more than just victims. They were a couple in love, building a life together in Houston. They'd recently bought a silver Kia Sorento SUV, a symbol of their shared dreams. Crystal had a young daughter, and the couple lived with Britney's grandmother and father, James Larry Cosby, in what should have been a supportive family home. But beneath the surface, a sinister current ran deep. James Cosby, 46, had just returned from a 2-year prison stint for sexual assault. He was a registered sex offender, bringing a dark past into an already tense household. You see, Cosby struggled with his daughter's sexuality, creating a powder keg of resentment and intolerance. On March 6, 2014, that powder keg exploded. While the exact trigger remains a mystery, prosecutors paint a chilling picture of what unfolded. An argument erupted in the Houston home, and James Cosby snapped. In a fit of rage, he allegedly attacked Britney, striking her multiple times with a sharp object. Her skull fractured under the brutal assault. As Britney lay bleeding, gasping for air, Cosby reportedly wrapped his hands around her throat, choking the life from his own flesh and blood. But the horror was far from over. Crystal Jackson arrived, possibly coming to pick up Britney, unaware she was walking into a death trap. Cosby's murderous rampage claimed a second victim. Crystal was choked and then shot at point-blank range, dying instantly from the gunshot wound. In the blood-soaked aftermath, Cosby faced a grim task, hiding his heinous crimes. He loaded the bodies of Britney and Crystal into their newly purchased Kia Sorento. Under cover of darkness, he embarked on a macabre 100-mile journey from Houston to the Bolivar Peninsula. This drive would later become crucial evidence. Cosby took the Galveston-Bolivar ferry, a crossing captured on surveillance footage. 2 witnesses would later testify to seeing an African-American man driving a silver SUV matching the description. Upon reaching Port Bolivar, Cosby committed one final act of desecration. He dumped the bodies behind a convenience store, discarding the young women like garbage. Then, he drove back to Houston, abandoning the SUV at a strip club called the Ritz. The discovery of Britney and Crystal's bodies the next day sent shockwaves through the community. At first, James Cosby played the part of a grieving father, but investigators soon began to unravel his web of lies. The breakthrough came when Cosby's fingerprint was found on a wooden shutter near the dump site. As detectives dug deeper, the evidence against Cosby mounted. Britney's blood stained the carpet in his bedroom. Cell phone records tracked his journey from Houston to Port Bolivar and back on the night of the murders. A bullet fragment found in the SUV contained traces of Crystal's hair, linking the vehicle to the crime. Despite the damning evidence, Cosby maintained his innocence throughout the investigation and trial. His defense team argued there was no concrete proof linking him to Crystal's death, and that the prosecution failed to establish a clear motive or produce a murder weapon. But the prosecution's case, built on a foundation of circumstantial evidence and expert testimony, proved compelling. After a 7-day trial and 3 hours of deliberation, a Galveston County jury found James Larry Cosby guilty of capital murder. The verdict brought a measure of justice for Britney and Crystal, but it couldn't erase the pain of their loss or the disturbing questions the case raised about tolerance, acceptance, and the sometimes deadly consequences of prejudice. James Larry Cosby was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, left to contemplate his actions in a cell, while the families of Britney and Crystal were left to grapple with their grief and the senseless nature of the crime. This case shed light on the vulnerabilities faced by LGBTQ+ individuals, even within their own families. It sparked discussions about acceptance, tolerance, and the need for support systems for LGBTQ+ youth. But the story of Britney and Crystal is more than just a cautionary tale. It's a call to action. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about homophobia, particularly within some religious and cultural contexts. It challenges us to examine our own biases and the messages we send, intentionally or not, to our LGBTQ+ family members and friends. We must recognize that acceptance isn't passive. It's an active choice we make every day. It's in the words we use, the support we offer, and the love we show to those who may be different from us. We need to challenge intolerance wherever we see it. In our communities, our places of worship, and yes, even in our own families. Silence in the face of prejudice can be interpreted as agreement. Creating safe spaces for LGBTQ+ individuals, especially young people, is crucial. This includes support networks, counseling services, and education programs that promote understanding and acceptance. We must also address the intersectionality of race, gender, and sexuality, recognizing the additional layers of vulnerability faced by LGBTQ+ individuals of color. The media coverage of cases like this deserves scrutiny too. How do we report on such tragedies without sensationalizing them? How do we honor the victims while also addressing the broader societal issues at play? These are questions we must grapple with as we cover stories involving LGBTQ+ individuals and hate crimes. As we close this chapter, remember that the story of Britney Cosby and Crystal Jackson isn't just about a crime. It's about all of us, our prejudices, our fears, and our capacity for change. It's a call to examine our own hearts and to ask ourselves, are we part of the problem, or are we actively working towards a solution? If this episode has moved you, or if you believe these stories need to be told, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to ensure you never miss an episode.